just as we came in the studio tonight, I saw something online that said Peterborough's vacancy rate is now over 2%, so it's better than 1%. It's still not ideal, but obviously some spaces are available. But just this week, Miriam Monsef had mentioned, our MP, had mentioned that she was hoping to bring in 2,000 units of affordable housing over the next little while, and of course Miriam was sent back to government and held a meeting this week with several interested parties about affordable housing and how we're going to solve that issue in Peterborough. So I wanted to talk about that. The meeting was just held. The announcement made it sound like there might actually be some concrete things happening, but I think they're still looking
I think maybe they should stop announcing they're having meetings until they have something to announce coming out of the meeting. Because I was excited. I thought, oh, good, they found a spot for summer. There's going to be something concrete announced as a result of this meeting. There was just announced, as I read it at least, that there'd be more meetings. And I think maybe it's wiser, if I was to give some political advice, to wait till you have something to say other than we've met.
Particularly when you've said the same thing a number of times for more than a year. You know, that 2,000 number has been out there, and they've in a way been blaming the rest of the community, not overtly blaming, but that's the message. We've got all this money, we just need people to come forward and, you know, kick in their portion, and housing will get built, and it will help solve the problem, which is true if it happens, but you've got to actually make it happen. Just saying that we've got this money out there is not doing it, obviously, and saying it over and over again, getting results.
You just people waiting for an answer.
People stop believing you.
Yeah.
You know, but part of the problem is, Jay, is, and Sylvie was mayor, July 15, 2004, the Great Peterborough flood. And one of the consequences of that flood is we lost a lot of the bottom 25% of the rentile quartile in Peterborough. On an aggregate, we replaced the housing that was lost, but we never did rebuild in that bottom area. And you know, when you look at history during the Second World War, the government of the day brought in the National Housing Act. And they had a template model to build houses. I grew up in the South End. Half the South End, Rose Avenue, O'Connell Road, were those homes. Yeah. So the government of the day said, here's our proposal. We want so many homes built. You give us a design, you build them, we'll pay for it. And they got housing on the market in 6, 8, 10, 12 months for people that were working in war industries.
And Jeff, they were supposed to be temporary, and
right.
80 years
Absolutely.
later, they're some of the most desirable
Veterans came back after the war, bought them inexpensively, which was a great thing under the National Housing Act. And I heard, you know, like my parents would talk about it, people would actually lift those homes up on Rose Avenue and build a basement underneath. Yeah. And I walked those streets. I mean, you know, as a city councillor, that housing stock is as good as anywhere in Peterborough. Exactly.
You know, and every community, practically every small community and small communities in this province,
all had some.
And they were basically it was run out of Canada Mortgage and Housing, or Canadian as it was then, Mortgage and Housing. The design, I think, was given. Yeah. And it was a good design. It was basically a Cape Cod type house. It was a good, basic, attractive design, and it was. I've always said that was the most effective social housing experiment we've ever had, and it was an accident. Yeah. It wasn't meant to last.
I'm not sure that we have or want to build the same thing now. That you build single-family homes, they're going to be on the periphery of town. So now it's going to be more multiples, apartment buildings, townhouses, whatever.
But you have a design to meet the day,
same
right?
model
that's
works.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, the same
and
approach.
I think we talked about this in December. That there was a similar burst in probably the mid-70s to mid-80s where a lot of church groups and social organizations took up the kind of offer that the feds are making now and built public housing, affordable housing in fairly large numbers, and then the government's got out of that market and it hasn't happened since, and it needs to happen again, and it should happen again.
The legendary C.D. Howe said, I want houses built in 6 months. Mm-hmm. Don't tell me how it's going to happen. I just want them built in 6 months.
And what's a million?
And he got it done in communities right across Canada from sea to sea.
And they're still there, and they're still they're still attractive houses.
They're great houses.
A lot of them modified inside. I think on the positive, I think it's part of the answer. Yeah. On the positive side, just locally, I think that the mayor's decision to appoint a chairman of housing in the form of Henry Clark, who certainly has a lot of experience, and to combine it with social services, I think was a good decision. And, you know, because at least I think you got two hardworking counselors. They are very different but hardworking, who can work together, and I think that's a good combination and probably will help, you know,
So you
facilitate.
see the project on McDonald Street now, part of that old Will Mills building.
The old
and
McRae
Yeah.
building? the
Yeah,
old plumbing building?
I think there's around 100 units altogether in
Yeah.
various, the city's kicking in money, the province, the
Yeah.
feds. There is no, to my knowledge, private sector money in that. So maybe that is the model that you do, and then you turn it over to Peterborough Housing Authority,
Yeah.
and you know, the city's going to get their money back if that project works, and it looks like it should. People pay rent. It's not, it's, you know, the whole affordable issue is, what's the definition of affordable,
Yeah.
what's as
And
a
look
percentage of market rent. But that's a project that's not in the long term going to cost the city any money, but they put up whatever it was, $6 million up front, I think, and it gets it built.
Yeah.
And look at the wonderful success story. It's small, it moves along a pace. There's 50-odd units there now, and very different units, some of them, at the Mount.
Yes,
You know, that's one of the most exciting projects,
It
I
is.
think, in all my time
is.
in Peterborough,
Yeah.
and successful.
Well,
And-
and you know, just, you know, talking about the meeting that was held yesterday, I think, you know, both the councillors were there. There is money to get this done through the National Housing Strategy. And it is the issue that there's not enough, and they're hoping to get private sector to come in. Jeff, you've worked with this before. We might talk about trains later, where you had $300 million for trains. They've
Yeah.
got 70-something million for this housing. Could you not use that to start building houses? What's the holdup?
I mean, you know, I was involved in cabinet discussions on this, and you know, at the end of the day, you get frustrated, because I used to say, let's just build housing capacity, right? And there always was reasons why why it couldn't happen, or why it couldn't happen fairly quickly. And I've always believed that, you know, you set it up, a proposal call, you have a contractor come in and said, I can build 200 units for X number of dollars, just get them built, right? Get them in the ground.
What were some of the reasons, Jeff, that you were given not to do it?
You know, we got to have partnerships with the Government of Canada, and we got to work with municipalities, and, you know, we got to work with A, B, and C within a community. And frankly, there was a lot of bureaucratic red tape that slowed it down.
And I think what Jay's asked is, the answer is yes. They're looking for private money as partners, and that's not coming forward. And private, not necessarily being for-profit, but I noticed that a couple of church groups were at that meeting with Mary and Monsef, which is a good sign. 'cause
Presbyterians, they were.
Presbyterians,
Yeah.
yes. Because St.
Who just
Giles
lost their
Presbyterian
church,
did.
St. Paul's.
St. Giles was a group
Oh,
that built
right, St.
a
Giles.
big
They
housing
did, St.
complex
Giles did,
back in
yeah.
the 70s,
Yep.
80s down on Park Street, is it, I guess?
Yes.
But I think the real issue is there's a certain strata of the housing sector the private sector probably is not going to be involved with. So you got to fill that, because that's the need. People that were living in tents, people with mental health issues. I mean, that's the strata that you got to attack if you're going to address homelessness.
And I think it's probably your editorial a while back, Jim, in the Examiner. You give $1 million to a company because they meet the criteria to build nice condo units. There should be a requirement that there be included some affordable units. And the only person who should know who's affordable and who isn't is the person who collects the rent. But, you know, we've got to, you know, you have all these developments going up, and there should be a requirement. Some municipalities have it. I know some of the Toronto boroughs had it, that you provide affordable housing
As part of.
as part of the
Well, every
deal.
day as I travel through East City, I see the big billboard signs. TVM, that's redeveloping the St. Joseph's House. Coming soon, your $1 million
Right.
condo
Yeah.
with
Right.
great view. Skyline will develop a new apartment complex. They'll be beautiful, overlooking the new Canadian Canoe Museum. And right across the road from us, on Mid-East Avenue, that property that includes Liftlock Golf
Right.
Land, there won't be anything that's affordable when that's fully
Well,
built.
even, there's another one going on the old Ethan White property across from the ale house by Ashburnham.
Yes.
Is building another
Yes.
one. But it's interesting because, and what you've just mentioned there, this is, I think, part of the challenge. The for-profit companies are making a lot of money selling high-end, and as the big city gets closer and our prices go up, there's more money to be made, and so, you know, there probably needs to be a way to put some enticement to include the affordable if we're going to see it happen. Because you look at things like Ontario Housing, which was done back in the 70s, a lot of those
Yes.
places are going to need to be redone and replaced
Very
over
much
the
so.
years. And we haven't seen that type of housing for...
And the Ontario
for-
government built those units.
Back, yeah.
And then they
yeah.
very kindly gave them to the
Yeah, I was
city
gonna
without,
say.
without, in bad shape and without money to fix them up. I recall that.
That's a discussion for another day.